Remember that storyline DC Comics was going to do that was so bad that AT&T fired the editor-in-chief? Well, they're bringing it back. What could go wrong? In 2021, DC Comics is bringing Future State, aka All New, All Different Marvel from 2015, cause that worked out so well. So well that it got the editor-in-chief at Marvel fired and preemptively got the EIC at DC fired. How many times do you need to do this idea before you realize it doesn't work? DC Comics did this in 2011 with the New 52, and it started off okay, but quickly petered out. Then they did it again with Rebirth, which undid most of what New 52 screwed up, but DC Comics dropped the ball on that. So their brilliant idea was to do yet another reboot, this time swapping out established characters for new woke replacements because that worked out so well for Marvel. Oh wait. Literally the only character anyone likes from that is Miles Morales, and that's just barely. This failed at Marvel, so why would you want to try it at DC Comics? Why? In 10 years, DC Comics would have rebooted their line 3 times. Or at least that was the plan before AT&T saw what Dan DiDio was planning and scrapped it and him. But this presented a new problem. The 5G concept, yes, I know that name is stupid, but deal with it, was already in the works, with scripts and art already being completed. This was a massive undertaking to just stop midway, and probably left DC Comics with a lot of books they weren't going to sell. Then the Wu flu hit and fucked over the industry, leaving Marvel and DC without enough product to sell because they had to shut down for a couple of months. This might not seem like it's a big deal, but when books are planned months in advance and then you have to scrap them and then can't work on their replacements, it's a problem. So DC decided to publish the 5G content as a Future State event, because who doesn't want another crossover? This all ties into the Dark Knight Death Metal story arc, wrapping up the ramifications from that event. For 2 months, all the DC books will be replaced by a new Future State title set a decade or so in the future, featuring all new, all different versions of your favorite characters in what appears to be the most generic way possible. I know that sounds cynical, but the thing is that I've seen this story before in DC Comics several times, and I'm tired of it. IGN explains the silliness of the idea, quote, "The larger Future State event is being divided into 3 core pillars: Superman family, Batman family, and Justice League family. The Superman family books will deal primarily with Superman's self-imposed exile from Earth following a disastrous international incident. Because of all the shit that's happened on Earth with Supes, this one international event is enough to make him leave the planet he saved thousands of times." It continues, "While the Man of Steel joins forces with a ragtag band of New Gods and other heroes to liberate Warworld, that's where he's going. Nowhere else in the universe needs help. Instead, he goes to the one place where everyone on the planet doesn't want him there. Wait, isn't that just like Earth now? Why does he just stay on Earth? Where there's no one strong enough to kill him. Meanwhile, quote, his son John takes up the mantle of Superman on Earth, with the lamest costume you've ever seen. I really need you to look at the screen because this is actually the saddest Superman costume ever. Ever. Just lazy and boring and forgettable, and even adding on a cape doesn't help. It just looks weak. And what does John do to protect Metropolis? He puts it in a bottle. Yep. Just so original. Anyway, quote, Wonder Woman is also included as part of the Superman family line, with Future State focusing both on a new Wonder Woman named Yara Flor and returning Amazon heroine Nubia. Yara Flor being, wait for it, from the Amazon. See, she's a real Amazon, even though the Amazons are actually Greek, and she's an immigrant, and probably a lesbian, and her pronouns are sleep aid. This is really the best you could come up with. Then we get to Bats, quote, the Batman family books will explore Bruce Wayne's lasting legacy. Bruce himself is apparently dead in the era of Future State. Nope, not really. They couldn't even sit on it for a few days. They've already solicited books showing that Bats is alive and well and on the run. Again. Didn't you just do this with his resurrection and the Court of Owls story? Why are you doing it again? It hasn't even been 10 years. But now Gotham has fallen into the hands of someone called the Magistrate, so now there'll be a poser taking Batman's name. And you know he's black because they won't show his face. Also, it was stated earlier when 5G was still a go that Luke Fox, Lucius Fox's son, will replace Batman. Because of all the people to choose, you choose the one who has the tiniest connection or legacy with the character. Also, they're bringing back Cassandra Cain as one of the bad girls with Stephanie Brown, but it's being written by Vita Ayala, so it's going to be a forgettable, non-binary mess. I wonder if anyone's told Vita that both of them are clearly female and canonically straight. On second thought, I wonder if anyone's told her their names, let alone their backstories. How much you want to bet she didn't even know these characters existed until they gave her the book? These three concepts basically set the tone for Future State. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen, but it sounds pretty meh. My guess is that DC will put the books out, and if they sell well enough, they may consider shifting the line to match these books, which I think would be a mistake because these are miniseries, and the novelty of the ideas, as played out as they may be, will be enough to get people to buy them. Maybe. It depends on whether people will go back to stores, assuming there's still stores for them to go to. I don't see this bringing it out of people. The comments on IGN and Kotaku, of all places, have pretty much the same vibe. No one's really excited about this. I would think that DC would try to undo the damage that Bendis did with John Kent, and focus on making their core characters that'll be in movies pretty soon as well written and drawn as possible. Make them the heavy hitters, and then play with everything else. Instead, they're borrowing Marvel's 2015 business model, which turned out to be a really bad idea, and that was well planned. Future State doesn't really seem to be all that well thought out. It just seems like they're trying to use what they had and run with it. And that's been my problem with DC Comics for a while. DC is known for its multiverse, having different timelines running in different titles. They tried this with the Earth 2 books, and it didn't go anywhere because this happened alongside the New 52. But right now would be the perfect time to try to create a new Earth 2 lineup, where you can put all your woke stories starting from scratch. You keep the legacy universe for people who want to read it, and then you can have your new politically correct versions of characters in their own lines, and we'll see how well that works. But if you're gonna reboot, reboot. If not, stop pussyfooting around. That was annoying and confusing with New 52, made better and worse by Rebirth, and now this Future State event is just going to muck it up even more, because if it doesn't do well, DC is totally not coming back to these versions of the characters. I could be wrong, this could totally hit it off, but I don't think it will. I think this is a very mid-tier event that'll be as memorable as zip drives. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.